Welcome to PCB Chat, where we talk with experts across the printed circuit design, manufacturing, and electronic supply chain fields. I'm Mike Buteau, president of the Printed Circuit Engineering Association. I'm pleased to have joining me Wally Rhines. Wally is the spokesperson for the ESD Alliance, which is part of Semiconductor Equipment and Materials International. He is also well known for his long career as chief executive of Mentor Graphics. Happy New Year, Wally.
Happy New Year, Mike.
Wally joins us each quarter to share details from the latest ESD Alliance report on sales of computer-aided engineering tools, semiconductor tools, PCB design software, related IP, services, and employment. Today, we'll go over the results for the third quarter 2025, which ended September 30th, and the data we are sharing was released by the ESD Alliance on January 12th. And it wasn't a double-digit increase for PCB and MCM tools, and it was down a few points from the increase we saw in the second quarter, but the third quarter saw the continuation of a now 19-quarter streak of year-over-year gains. So tell us what you've learned, Wally.
Well, you're right, Mike. Not as strong as it has been, but still good growth. Moving along, it's interesting that the four-quarter moving average is 8%. We're lower than that in the third quarter of 2025, 3.4%. Could be an aberration. I wouldn't take any one quarter at more than simply interesting. But the spread around the world for PCB, I did find interesting.
I would think that 19 quarters in a row must be one of the longest growth streaks in the industry history, certainly in the past 20 years. I mean, I know there was a lot of wild growth in the industry back when auto routers and analysis tools first came out, but I think as tools became more mature, this has got to be one of the strongest rallies we've seen.
I think you're right, Mike. We've been keeping the statistics since the mid to late 1990s, and we don't have very good records for all of that. But 19 quarters is extraordinary. I would be very surprised if that's happened before, at least in recent history.
How about the subcategories? What can you tell us about some of the tools, like library management, for example?
Yeah, that's interesting. Library management was actually quite strong this time, more so than it has been. It actually grew 25% versus the same period last year. And the other thing that was really interesting was that package design was quite strong this time as well.
And now a word from our sponsor. Join the electronics design and manufacturing industry at PCB East 2026, coming April 28th to May 1st to the DCU Center in Worcester, Massachusetts. Sponsored by the Printed Circuit Engineering Association, PCB East features more than 120 hours of expert electronics design, manufacturing, and assembly training. The annual one-day exhibition will be held April 29th and features major semiconductor companies such as AMD, Lattice Semiconductor, Microchip, and Samtec, along with leading software developers and manufacturers. Registration for the conference and exhibition opens in January. Be sure to book your spot. For more information about PCB East, visit pcbeast.com.
In your years at Mentor and in the industry, could you ever draw a correlation between growth in any of those particular categories and something else that's going on in the segment? Like new component packages and things like that. Would that drive an increase in tools?
Well, the packaging technology is changing very, very rapidly. And there are lots of companies, semiconductor companies, that use EDA tools to do the routing on their packages just as they do on their printed circuit boards. So it's something that we monitor, and we've actually been disappointed in recent years that it hasn't grown more. So maybe we're seeing the start of something here, because I'm sure there's a lot more package design going on.
Got it. Now, all the major categories were up year over year, with the only blip being the IC design and verification segment, which grew just 1.3%. And that saw the four-quarter moving average slip into the red. Is that a warning sign, or is that because the second quarter was a down period for that segment?
I think it's more one quarter related. We saw some big jumps this quarter. China had become quite a weak participant in the worldwide markets, and suddenly it bounced back this quarter with much stronger numbers. We had, if you look at the worldwide numbers, as you said, the four-quarter moving average is still about 10%. And while it's true that physical design was in fact negative, modestly negative on a four-quarter basis, and much more, and well, I guess modestly positive on just a quarter-to-quarter basis, but the numbers shift around, but the four-quarter moving averages are fairly stable, and so as long as we're in that 10% range for total EDA. I think we got a healthy industry. And if you look at the largest of the publicly reporting companies in EDA, they're in the 10 to 15% range as well. So that gives further, I guess, reinforcement to the observation that people are doing a lot more design than they historically have.
So that regional growth, as you were mentioning, it was positive throughout, but Asia was really particularly noteworthy.
Amazing. Yes. That's what I mentioned, what I found interesting in the statistics. We had, yeah, we had actually negative growth in PCB in North America, weak growth in other regions, but the whole thing was pulled by the Asia Pacific, 31% growth. That's a big number. So, to the extent it's not a statistical aberration, it seems to say that Asia is in the business of system design. And I would note it's not just China. Korea and Taiwan are inching up toward the same range of total EDA purchases that China is at. China is roughly 2 billion, about 10% of the world's overall EDA purchases, but Korea is up to about 1.4 billion, somewhere in there, and Taiwan 1 billion. So it's spread over Asia, and I think you have to conclude that the strength in semiconductors is complemented by the strength in system design, designing all those integrated circuits. Hey, they've got to go somewhere. So there's a lot of system design activity.
Yeah, and in particular, I mean, when you mention the delta between Korea and China, and then you think about the relative size of those countries and the number of companies involved, I mean, it's that's
Absolutely.
shocking that they
Absolutely.
could be anywhere that close.
But you do have a strong automotive industry in Korea. You have a lot of systems companies, consumer electronics, and other things. But yeah, population difference, enormous difference, and the size of companies in Korea very concentrated. A few really large ones, and then fewer of the small ones. Unlike the U.S., where we have many little companies, and China does as well.
One of the remarkable things to me, Wally, is the resilience of the Americas to hang on to the largest share of the EDA pie, despite the migration of manufacturing abroad. I think if I'm doing the math right, the Americas makes up about 40% of the worldwide market for PCB and MCM tools, and in the 44-45% range, I think, for the worldwide market for all EDA tools and services.
Yeah, that may be. I'd have to go check the statistics for sure, but you're right. How can the U.S. Hang on when so much of the system design and manufacturing has moved offshore? The answer is there must be a lot going on here that has not moved offshore, or a lot of new companies springing up because the U.S. is a fertile environment for startups and small companies.
And employment was off the charts on a year over year basis. It was up 17%. Although, if I'm looking at this correctly, I think a lot of that was baked in from previous reporting periods. I think that the zero point 0.9 or 1% sequential growth in the third quarter is probably more realistic long term.
Well, I would think so, but this is an interesting statistic because it almost always grows, and you can't indefinitely grow the number of people employed in the EDA industry worldwide forever until we all become EDA engineers. So it has to level out somewhere, but it is remarkable to me that year to year you would have it going up that much, 17%, and to have total employment at 73,000. That's a lot of engineers working on design software, design tools, services, IP, things like that.
Wally, was there anything else in the data that jumped out at you this quarter?
Well, one thing that is a constant for a printed circuit board is analysis tools. I cannot remember a quarter that we didn't have analysis tools right up there among the leading growth areas, and it's $500 million a year. So I have to be fascinated that the analysis continues to be a challenge. I'm sure it's power analysis, noise analysis, physical layout analysis, whatever it is, it grows faster than the other tools associated with it, like schematic capture, for example.
So maybe we have the makings of a Moore's law for the PCB design tools industry, right? A Rhines law, right? It could be looking at the growth of analysis tools versus the growth of the overall market. What that ratio should be.
Yeah, for every dollar of physical design, you buy $2 worth of analysis tools. Maybe so. I'll work on that.
Okay. Well, that's the picture as of the end of Q3 2025, and we certainly appreciate your time, Wally, for sharing all the ESDA data.
Thanks very much, Mike. Always good to talk.
For PCB Chat, this is Mike Buteau. Have a nice day.